go to die in the planning phase. Starting a business is like, okay, imagine a scenario. You're at a lake, right? Off in the distance, there is a dock that's floating out there with a slide on it. That's where all the fun's happening, right? That's where all the rich people are. Imagine this. I'm doing an analogy here. All the rich people, all the people that are having the time of their life are on that dock. They're out there though. They're not right up close. They're further out there. They got a slide. Okay. There's a little dock that goes out a little ways, and then it kind of, there's a little kiddie pool section where it's just sand. It's nice and soft, and you can walk in the water and just fool around in the water a little bit. There's no threat of drowning. But guess what? You don't get to go off the water slide unless you get to that dock that's way out there. Starting a business is like this. When you go to get in the water, there's literally usually only 2 people that ever make it to that dock. Well, usually there's only one. Usually the type of person that makes it to that dock is the person that walks to the end of the kiddie pool dock and jumps in, right? But you got a whole bunch of other people. You got people that just kind of slowly walk into the water and they're just kind of enjoying it. They'd like to make it to the dock, but they can't just jump in the water because it's too cold. It's too cold. I can't do it. What they're really saying is, I don't want it bad enough. Right? I don't think I want to jump in the water yet. I'm just getting warmed up. I just can't jump in. I got to get warmed up first. Right? So you got the people that got their toes in the water. You got the people that go to the end of the dock and they put their feet in the water. They're just dreaming of the dock. They're just planning on how they're going to get there. And they got, their feet in the water and they're like, oh, that's cold. And they pull their feet out. And then you got the people that hold on to the dock. They hold on to the stairs on the dock. And they get into their waist and then they get right back out. Oh, that's too deep. I'm scared. Something touched my foot. Some slimy grass touched my foot. I'm out. They go back to the kiddie pool, the kiddie section where it's sand, where it's comfortable, where there's no requirements. It's easy. Everybody can make it there. But all the cool rich kids are at the end of the dock. They're having the time of their life. They're jumping off into the water. They're going down the water slide. The only way you're going to make it there is if you jump into the water and just start swimming. You're never going to just automatically appear there. It doesn't happen like that. And usually the people that slowly get into the water never completely immerse themselves, and they don't ever push themselves hard enough to get there because they're just like, I'm fine where I'm at. I can handle a little bit of cold, whatever, I'm happy. The guys and the girls that just jump off, you got 2 types. You got the cannonballers, you got the people that just dive in, and then you got people that are pushing people into the water. The people that get pushed into the water, they just jump right back out. They never swim to that dock. They just get right back out. Whoa, that was cold. That was adrenaline, but I'm good. I don't need to go over there. The people that dive off, they do a swan dive head first. Those are always the first people to make it there. The people that have an idea in their head and they said, head first, baby. I'm going all in now. Head first. go head first, you make the fastest amount of progress in the shortest amount of time. When you cannonball in, here's what happens. You're like, I'm just gonna go for it, okay? I don't really know what's going on. I'm just gonna go for it, whatever. You jump in, you're underwater. You can't really breathe for half a second. You finally make it to the top, and you're like, well, I'm in. I might as well go for it. Start swimming, boom, then you make it. Right? So the moral of the story is, have an idea, dive head first for it. If you're just thinking, you know what, let me give it a try, a lot of those cannonballers, they jump in and something touches their foot and then they're back out, you know. They got a taste of the deep end and they're like, not for me. This is like the perfect analogy for business owners, because in the world, you have the 1% of people that make it to the tip top of the financial pyramid, the pinnacle at the top, like 1% or less, right? And then you have, you know, as the pyramid gets wider, there's more and more people. It's just like the dock out in the lake. How many people actually go to the dock? How many people actually make it to those pylons that are out there? And they get on the top of the pylon, and everybody else is just like, how are they doing that? They're crazy. I would never do that. But that sure does look fun, you know. I wish I could make it up there. And then they never give the effort. And then you got the people that are just like, you know what, we only got one life, and it's short. Let's live it. Let's do it. Head first, dive, swim, get there, jump up there, have the time of your life. You're having fun. You're doing stuff. That's the way business works. You got so many people trying to plan how they're going to get in the water and plan how they're going to make it to that dock. You know, if you can't come up with a vision, just jump in the water, man. Just know that if you swim hard enough, you won't drown. You can't. You literally can't drown. Your body won't let you. It is what it is. Once you dive off that diving board or jump off into that water, instinct kicks in. And you will find stuff to do to survive. You will do what it takes to survive. Now, once you realize that you're not going to die over a simple choice, now you have to put yourself in a direction. And you can determine if you're going to doggy paddle or if you're going to do some Olympic breaststroke, let me get there quick. It's up to you. You can do the backstroke there if you want. But let me tell you something. It's called analysis paralysis. And I coined this term myself. I'm the only one that thought of this term. Nobody said this term before. I'm the first one. Analysis paralysis. There's many different variations of what people say. Oh, dreams go to die in the planning phase. I call it analysis paralysis. You start analyzing every little thing and then you don't take action because it paralyzes you. That's what happens to so many people. They have all these dreams and then they do too much analysis and they don't just act. They have all these ideas but no action. That's why I tell a lot of you guys, if you have a goal, write it down, because just the simple act of writing it is better than just thinking about it. It's one step further, one step closer. Even if it's millimeters, it's still closer, right? It still gets you closer. It's surface. You've been immersed in the craziness. You've made it to the top. You're not drowning. You realize, I can still breathe. Okay, let me point myself in the direction. Let me get turned to the right direction. That's what writing it down does for you. It, instead of looking like this, like a game, like a, like a new player in Call of Duty where they're pointing their gun at the sky and doing circles, it brings their vision down to what they want. When you write it down, that's what it does. It brings your vision down to the steps, to the path of how to get there. The way my whole business started, I didn't dive into the water. I wish I would have dived into the water. It would have happened so much faster for me. I would be so much further along. I would have way more trucks, way more employees, way more wealth, everything, more. If I would have just dove in. Instead, I kind of did the cannonball thing when I went into business. I was like, you know what? I'm fed up. I can't dip my toes in the water enough. I'm just going to jump in. Screw it. I came up with 3 little ideas. I want to be a roofer, I want to be a welder, or I'll run a dump truck business, right? I kind of dipped my toes in the water with the welding, played around in the kiddie pool. I had my full-time job and I was, doing welding on the side. And I got a couple good tastes of what it was like to get just deep enough where my feet weren't touching the ground. And I was like, ooh, I like that. Yeah. This is where the fun begins. I got a couple, I had like $1,000 a day welding when I was at my full-time job. It took me a whole month to make $1,000. Or no, $4,000, right? So a whole week. Normally it would take me a whole week to make $1,000. And in the welding, I did it in one day. And I was like, whoa, this is the rich money I've been looking for. How do I get this consistency? I need this in my life. This is what's gonna bring my family to the next level. I'll be able to build generational wealth. I'll be able to provide for my family in a way where we're comfortable, not living $50 at the end of the month and I got $25 to take the wife out and we can't even afford a steak. You end a month with $25, $50 and you're like, where did it all go? That's the problem with the job. It's just overbroke. Just overbroke. Job. Just overbroke. That's all it's going to do for you. Unless you push yourself into that next level of responsibility, push yourself into that deeper end, that's where the real rewards come from. The fulfillment, the joy and the happiness, the stability. So I wrote it down, right? I wrote it down. I said, this is my goal. And then, you know what I did? I started doing the pros and cons of each business model. And I was just looking at this like, okay, roofing would be one of the easiest things to get into because I'm already connected with all these roofing distributors. They all know me. They all know my work ethic. I'm a hard worker. They all see this. I can start my own roofing business. That would have been the easiest route. The least amount of overhead. But the most amount of physical labor. Physical hard blood. Sweat labor. Like real sweat labor. Like slave labor. Right? And there's something to be said for the guys that do the roofing. I mean, the profit is, woo! Astronomical. The profit is astronomical in the roofing industry. I mean, they're paying like $2,000 in materials, and then the profit for the job is like $15,000, and they bust it out in a week. You know what I mean? You could run a roofing business to scale if you can find the work. Woo! The profit, man, the numbers are astronomical. Especially if you can find some guys that just want, to get paid by the square or whatever, Right? Welding is a little bit more, it's a little bit harder, I would say, like to get into a customer base, right? Because not everybody needs welding, and the people that do need it are not just like, they're not everywhere, right? Everybody has a roof over their heads, right? And roofs always go bad. That's the way roofs are designed. They're made to go bad. They're not made out of stone. They don't last for millions of years. Right? So there's a high demand for roofing, right? Welding, not so much. Yeah, you're gonna have a couple guys that need, constant stuff. A lot of shipyards, a lot of, there's fabrication shops that do manufacturing and that type of stuff, right? And then there's the dump trucking whole thing, which to me seemed like, I did the welding, I did it for a couple days straight, and I was like, I cannot handle the heat and the smoke. It's just too much. Like, I wish I could, but it's not the type of work that my body can consider easy, and I can easily do it all day, 14 hours, 15 hours a day. It just wasn't in my mind to be able to do that, right? And so I was like, you know what, I've been driving truck for a couple years now. I know I can sit in a truck all day. That's easy, right? And I had a slight idea of, well, shoot, I know everything about fuel, hauling fuel. I could start a fuel business, right? I could haul some fuel, but then I was thinking the insurance cost to jump into that industry is good luck with that. I never really explored the options in that industry, right? It just seemed like too big of a step of entry. There's like steps of entry, right? When you have to come up with $20,000 for your insurance and they want it all up front, like how many people could just, hey, I've been working a full-time job for minimum wage, let me just come up with 20 grand. Not happening, right? There's barriers of entry, right? Now, the dump trucking, construction is a lot easier of an industry to break into, right? Because number one reason is that the insurance is not as high, right? It's a lot lower. And then you have just the aspect of the industry is slightly oversaturated, right? Now, if you look at the fuel industry, whew, that's a competitive industry. There's like 5 companies. That's it. Because they're the only ones that can afford the insurance. Nobody else can afford it, right? So dump trucking was kind of an easier thing to break into because, it's just way more easier to break into. Let me just put it like that. It's easy. You need a CDL. It's going to cost you $10,000, $12,000 for your first year in insurance. They may want it up front. You may do month to month. They wouldn't let me do month to month when I first started. They wanted 6 months up front. And that was a penny to swallow, dude. That was like swallowing a nickel or a quarter, That was a horse pill, for me. Coming out of just making $20 an hour. But as you know, the story goes, I bought this old junky truck. It was absolute trash, which was stupid. I mean, I should have just saved my money up a little bit better, I should have did a better job of saving my money, which I don't know if that would be humanly possible. Like, I had the tightest budget in the world. Like, we were eating top ramen and mac and cheese. You know, 99-cent hot dogs from Winco. Like, rice-a-roni, beans and rice. Like, we had a tight budget. And I saved up that, you know, that 10 grand to buy that truck. It took me a year to make that money, to save it. You know, I had decided I am not going to live this life of never ending, just barely breaking even at the end of the month. F this. You know, I had that moment where I'm just like, I'm fed up, I'm done, I'm doing something different. You know, and I made the smallest change of just slowly stacking up the money, which in hindsight, it's getting harder to do that. Let me tell you why it's getting harder to do that. To just, instead, you know, the government is printing trillions of dollars. So without you knowing it, they're effectively stealing your buying power. And a lot of you guys don't even know this. You don't recognize the government stealing from you without stealing from you. What they're doing is they say, oh, you make 20 bucks an hour. Okay, 20 bucks an hour. That seems like a decent wage. You start saving your money, you got $5,000. 10 years later, that $5,000 can't buy you half of what it bought you 10 years ago because of inflation, which is the government printing away your buying power. You know, they're stealing your buying power because they're inflating the currency. You know, you got to find a better way to save. Don't save in dollars. Do not save in dollars. You'll lose money if you save in dollars. You can't save in the bank anymore. You just can't. You got to buy some gold or silver or Bitcoin or whatever. You got to find something different. Dollars is not going to do it for you. I'll tell you that right now. Do not save your money in dollars. You're losing when you do that. You know, they want to make it seem like, oh, the dollar's strong. No, it's not. They're printing trillions of it, right? They're literally, the money printer's going brrr. It's not one sheet of 100 bills at a time. It's going brrr. Like, it's printing trillions of dollars. So they can go blow it on hookers in some other country or whatever they're doing with it. They're spending it for no reason, right? And that is what's causing your money to become worthless over time. You think, oh, everything's going up in value. No, nothing's going up in value. The dollar's going down in value. You're looking at it wrong. You're looking at it from the wrong angle. So the best thing you can do is force yourself to make more money. Work harder, work more overtime or something. And then don't save in dollars, right? But if you do have the ability to save a decent chunk of money that it's not devaluing so fast that you're not really saving anything, then do it. You know, whatever you gotta do, you gotta do what you gotta do, you know what I mean? And every person has different risk tolerances and different goals in their heads, right? Right? Somebody that's in their 90s ain't gonna put all their money in some speculative asset, you know? But if you're young in age, you kind of need to gamble, because if you don't, you're never gonna get out of the hole they put you in. You're born in a ditch. Nobody cares about you. You know, they invented the game where they're winning and they're gonna keep winning until you work so hard that you deserve to win. You know, that dock that's off in the lake, you ain't getting there without swimming hard. You're just not going to. That's where you're at. Stop trying to plan everything out, intricate details. Most of you guys just need a cannonball in the water, or you're never going to try and go for it, right? Some of you guys have the ability to see the goal and dive in and really, you know, make headway. Most of us, people like me, we're too stupid to do that, you know? The only reason I made it in business is because I was so naive. That's literally what happened to me. I was so naive, I just thought I can outwork my stupidity. And somehow I magically did it. You know? Can you outwork your stupidity and your naiveness? I don't know. You're going to have to ask yourself that question. When I bought that $8,000 truck, cracked frame, bent ram, no flipping lights, no muffler, bald tires, you know, the truck was leaking 2 gallons of oil a day. I literally drove that truck home and there was no oil on the dipstick. That's how stupid I was. I was like, well, it runs, it starts. I mean, worst case scenario, I'll just rebuild the motor on my spare time. That's how stupid I was. I was brain dead. You can make it if you're brain dead. I'm the living proof. I am the proof. The proof is there. I got 4 trucks, a massive excavator, 10 acres, you know. I got all this stuff that I never dreamed of having, and I never could have dreamed of having half the stuff I have if I would have stayed in my day job, just, you know, saving away that little buck change that I had, you know. I would have had maybe 50 grand in the bank by now if I would have stayed on that path. I probably would have gotten more lazy. After I would have had like 20 or 30K in the bank, I would have just been like, I don't need to work these extra hours. I got 30 grand in the bank. If they want me to haul that extra load, I'll tell them to get F. If they tell me to do something I don't want to, F off. I'm done. I quit. I'll go find a different job. I would have had more of that mentality of, I'm happy where I'm at. But something inside of me said, Brian, this life is not what you're called to do. You're called to do something different than this. And, you know, I don't know, maybe it was the fact that I had kids that totally altered my mindset on the future, and I don't know if it was having kids or what, you know. Looking back on all my videos, I used to say I did it for my kids. Well, a big part of it is I did it for myself too, because I was tired of struggling every day. I was tired of ending the month with 20 bucks, 50 bucks. How do you work for a whole year, 60 hours a week, and you end the year with you end the month, every single month, with only $50 to spare, and then you go blow it on something that literally goes to $0 in value? That's what 90% of you guys do. You take that little bit of extra that you have, you end the month with 200 bucks, 300 bucks, maybe you end the month with 1,000. I don't know what your scenario is, but you end the month, go on Amazon, you buy some stupid trinket, or you go on to some video game and you pay for some video game subscription, and there goes your $250 of extra that you had into something that will never pay you back. The value of what you buy goes to zero every fucking time. You gotta stop doing that. You're hurting yourself. The problem is you don't realize that little coffee that you're buying every day, or that little Netflix subscription, or your YouTube premium subscription, that's what's killing your chances of breaking out of the hole. It's that little thing. Once you realize that, and you don't even have to fully realize it, you just have to realize it enough to say, I'm not going to do this for a year, I'm just going to put this money into this for a year. Let me just say 1 year, it's not that big of a deal. 1 year is 1 year. Start out with 3 months. Start out for 3 months to say, I'm going to do this with this money for 3 months. After the 3 months, I'm gonna do it for 3 more months. Let's just see where this is going. You know, I see a little bit of progress, but it ain't really nothing to brag about. Let's just do 3 more months. And then you will be amazed at how far you've gotten in those 6 months versus when you never even attempted. I guarantee you that. I guarantee you that. If you put your effort into it, 1,000,000%, you will see a difference. If you don't see a difference, it's because you didn't do it. You half-assed it. I guarantee you this. Every time you see somebody going to the gym every day, you know, focusing on their diet, if they do it every time, 100%, there will be change. It's not going to happen overnight, but there will be change, and it will add up. I guarantee you that. I've never seen it not work. You never see that super buff dude and be like, hey dude, how? Oh, I got lucky. No, they never say that. It's because it never works that way. It's never luck. There's no such thing as luck. It's hard work every time. Until you just quit crying and just go for it, you're never going to experience the fun side. You won't experience it. And you can just dream all you want while we're over there jumping off and diving and sliding down the slide, having the time of our lives. We're not stressing about anything except for making more big bucks. You know? We actually have the time where we can sit back and step back and say, you know what? Look at this massive wealth I've built. Let me be very clear. Money will not make you happy though. I guarantee you that. Money will not satisfy you. It just won't. You can't look for happiness in the future. And you can't find it. What the hell is this Amazon driver doing? It's not really Amazon. The guy's hauling an Amazon trailer, but he just turned around on this 2-lane road. He's lost. He's lost. Anyways, guys, I've taken enough of your time. Thank you for tuning in. Pound that like button and pound that subscribe button. And share this on your social media site of preference. And do yourself a favor, make that small change. Just try it for 3 months. If you gotta lie to yourself and say, I'm only gonna do it for 3 months and then I'll do something different, just lie to yourself and tell yourself that. Once those 3 months are over, you're gonna see the small amount of change, just enough change that you need to see to get motivated to keep on it. That's all it takes. That's all it takes. I know for a fact because, I mean, that's all it really takes. You're gonna see the money start to add up and you're like, wow, Ryan's on to something. And then next thing you know, you're gonna cut that budget even more. You're gonna see extra things that you could be doing. And your snowball is gonna get bigger. That's how it always works. It's gotta work, it's gotta start with a small character change, a small little habit that you're gonna change, and then that will change your whole life. It will. I guarantee you that. I'll catch you guys on the next one.